Vientiane GEOMATIC Services Sole Company Limited, called VGS, held its first aerial drone show to demonstrate how the drone surveys measured for area encompassing the city of Vientiane and Luang Prabang town with the aim to reduce the impacts of natural hazards, to reduce the impacts of flooding in Vientiane and Luang Prabang towns, and strengthen the country's capacity for hydrometeorological services and disaster risk financing.
Whatever, not a problem, as long as you can see. I'm going to...
The first aerial drone show was held on Friday afternoon, 27th of January, aiming to demonstrate and explain to the Department of Waterway, Ministry of Public Works and Transportation on how the unmanned aerial vehicle, or so-called drone, was used during the unmanned aerial surveys of Vientiane and Luang Prabang under the Lao PDR Southeast Asia Disaster Risk Management Project, which funded by the World Bank Trust Fund provided by the Japanese government. Under this project, Vientiane GEOMATIC Services flew a total of 340 square kilometers, utilizing one of the most technical sophisticated drone brands, JOUAV, with 3.6 wingspan vertical takeoff and landing drone, or VTOL. Vientiane GEOMATIC Services operates 5 different drones for different tasks. In this case, the drone data capture was used to produce corrected orthophoto maps, digital service models, digital terrain models, and map contours. The data is used to serve as a basis for numerical flood simulation modeling, flood hazard mapping, and the design and implementation of structural and non-structural flood management measures for an area encompassing the city of Vientiane and Luang Prabang town, with the aim to reduce the impacts of natural hazards, to reduce the impacts of flooding in Vientiane and Luang Prabang towns, and strengthen the country's capacity for hydrometeorological services and disaster risk financing.
Vientiane is relatively flat, as we all know. And here we are, standing in the middle of the Tatluang swamp at the moment, which we all knew many years ago was literally just a big swamp. But when we get those 100-year floods or 100-year rains, which seem to happen every 50 years these days with climate change and what have you, the government and officials concerned need to know where and what areas are likely to be affected by flooding. Now, with this aerial imagery and the contours and what we call a digital terrain model, which means we're actually measuring the shape of the land with or without the trees and roads, buildings and what have you, they can actually monitor with the use of our aerial imagery exactly the areas that are going to be prone to flooding and what may cause the flood to happen. Maybe there's a low-lying area that should have been built up, like a little dam, a saddle dam type situation. It's very difficult and time-consuming to have officials go out scratching their head. Is this the area that's subject to flooding or not? You don't need to go out from the office anymore. You can spend a lot of time in the office, easy to train people. Everyone knows how to use computers these days. Kids are great with their mobile telephones, iPads and all that sort of thing. It's only one step up to use various software and see exactly where a flood-prone area is likely to be.
Vientiane GEOMATIC Services is celebrating its 23rd year in survey and mapping this year and over 5 years in aerial mapping, although its owner has over 52 years in aerial mapping in manned aircraft.
But moving along to the private companies, we've got some of them here today who are growing trees in Laos, helping to develop plantations, and of course in turn they'll be cut down eventually, but it's very difficult and time consuming to send people out to measure every tree. How's it growing? Is it big enough to be cut down now? Now you can use some of our drones like our M300 over here that's got LiDAR and will actually very accurately measure the size of the tree trunk. You don't have to send people out climbing up the sides of the mountain where the trees are growing and what have you. The drone will give you all that information with the appropriate software and what have you.
The company is one of the oldest and most experienced survey companies in the Lao PDR, providing survey and mapping services, including hydrology, meteorology, on more than 60 hydropower projects in Laos and the region, including all the major mines in Laos, from the air to the ground, in tunnels, and under the water. VGS is there to map your world for you.